there was a time where like somebody said to me, "You're always trying to one up people." And I was like, "No, that's not what I'm trying to do at all." And it made me feel like hesitant to shine, right? And it's like I don't ever want to feel that way again, right? And I recognize now that like there was a lot of layers to that, right? And it's like it's not about me, right? Like I don't need to worry about what I'm doing and not doing. Like I can just be myself, and if people feel like I shine, then great, right? Like and I don't need to feel like I need to worry about how others are perceiving. I can just be myself and feel good about that. And um the people who that resonates with are the right people to have around me,
Exactly.
right?
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Welcome to this week's interview. Today's episode is for you if you've maybe been looking to make a change in your life, if you have been working a specific career or a certain type of work and you're looking to make a pivot and maybe you've been holding yourself back. Today's guest is a prime example of how allowing yourself to evolve and change can lead to such beautiful things, and how all of your past experience is never a waste of time. How everything that you've done leads you to where you're going and helps you get there so much faster, right? Like no experience is ever wasted. In this episode, the guest and I also talk about the reality of finding our authentic self and how sometimes it seems like you just reach this point when you figured out who you are, but that's actually not true. Who you are continues to evolve and it continues to change. And we really do need to normalize that sometimes life is going to life and things are going to happen, and it can affect our confidence. It can affect the way that we're showing up. We can go from like taking up space to maybe feeling really small. Things can happen in the workplace. Things can happen in relationships. Things can happen that can really affect our confidence. But just like you built it initially, you can always build it back. But I do think it's so important to normalize that we are going to go through phases in our lives when we're not going to feel like ourselves. And that is when this guest and I crossed paths when she was going through a hard time. And this guest is my client, Revekka, who is the founder of Axiom of Purpose. And she leverages nearly 30 years of marketing and communication experience. She works on campaigns that are purpose driven and that are really dedicated for the greater good. After spending a decade in Hollywood publicity and promotions, working on movies for Disney, Paramount, Universal, and other studios, she then shifted her focus to public service. She served in key communication roles for the Lieutenant Governor of Colorado, Denver Human Services, Denver Public Works, the Denver Mayor's Office, and the Port of San Diego, where she launched the agency's new brand. She spent 2 years as a creative strategy VP for a boutique agency before starting Axiom, which is her agency now, focusing exclusively on purpose-driven projects, channeling her expertise towards positive environmental and social change. She spends most weekends brunching with her granddaughters. I swear she does not look like a grandmother at all. I just met her over the weekend. But whenever she's hanging out with her granddaughters, she's searching for better crepes than the ones she learned to make from her abuelita. But of course, that has not happened yet. Revekka and I crossed paths in November of last year, so November of 2023. And the progress that I have seen in this individual is incredible. When we invited her to come on the podcast and she filled out the form that we have, she mentioned that after joining Courage Driven Latina and working with me for a short period of time, that she completely turned things around. I mean, she talks about this in the podcast episode, but like motivation is back, has been losing weight, has been more active, and has also added 2 new contracts to her agency, which is $80K worth of new business, and negotiating another one, which is what she talks about inside the program. And she feels like this is just the beginning. And I feel the exact same way because I'm telling you, I just met her this last weekend and she is radiating. And the reason that I am so focused on this is because Revekka already had a business and she already had a successful business when she joined. And you'll learn what her courage project is in the interview, but it was not a business courage project. Yet we managed to get her motivation back, her confidence, and grow her business even more. And if you've been wanting to join us inside of Courage Driven Latina, then mark your calendars because the doors are opening soon. They are opening on July 29th. So be sure to join the waitlist by going to the link down below in the show notes, or you can just go to couragedrivenlatina.com. When you join the waitlist, you are the first to know when we open doors. But again, they are opening on July 29th and they are closing on August 7th. So they are not open for very long. When you join the waitlist, we will send you an email to let you know that the doors are open. That way, you ensure that you can secure your spot. And we also are offering a 48-hour bonus that I don't want you to miss. So mentally prepare yourself, get your stuff together, talk to your partner, do anything that you need to do to be sure that you're ready to join us on July 29th because I don't want you to miss the bonus. And if you've been eyeing this program for a while, there is no better time to join than now. It is a 12-month program. And I mean, the amount of transformation that my clients have seen in this program is incredible. You're going to hear it in today's podcast episode. And again, join the waitlist down below. I can't wait to work with you. And let's get into this episode. All right. Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. Anytime I bring on a guest, I am so excited because I really only bring on people that I find fascinating and that I think you will also find fascinating. And how amazing that this individual happens to also be one of my clients, but also an incredible business owner. And this person is Revekka. Welcome, Revekka. Can you please introduce yourselves and tell the audience and the listeners what you do, who you are, and what you do?
Yes, my name is Revekka Balancier, and I am the founder of Axiom of Purpose, which is a purpose-driven marketing and communications company. Founded my agency on the premise that we wanted all of our projects to have a positive environmental or social impact. And so our purpose is helping other companies and projects that either already have a positive impact or that are looking to shift into that purpose-driven space, and we help them do that.
How amazing. And I know I've mentioned this to you before we started working together, but Courage Driven Latina used to be called Purpose Driven Latina. And because of trademark purposes, we actually had to change the name. But we're just so aligned on a value level. Tell us a little bit about how this came about. How did you start your own company? And then what made you make the decision, okay, it's going to be a purpose driven company?
Yeah, so I started my career in the movie industry, and I intended always to go into the public sector or into campaign work. Actually, I wanted to do political work originally. And so when I was in college, I was looking for an internship, and the internship coordinator said, I think you would be great for this like movie marketing internship. And I was like, yeah, no, no, thank you. That's not at all what I want to do. And I was like, there's this like AARP internship, and that sounds like the right one for me because I know they have a big lobby, right? And so she was like, well, why don't you go on both interviews? And when I went on the interview, it turned out to be a Disney internship. And so I was like, well, it couldn't hurt to have Disney on my resume. And so I took the Buena Vista Pictures internship, and my responsibilities were to go to all of the colleges in my area, which was Colorado at the time. And so I was to promote all of their different films on the campuses. And I ended up then staying in the movie industry as a field publicist for 10 years, working for Paramount, Universal, DreamWorks, Sony, MGM, just had a great time. I call it my 20s. I did it from the time that I was 19 to the time that I was 29, and then was like, as much fun as this has been, I really want to do something that is more directly tied to serving the community. And so I did a complete 180 and I went into um, the City and County of Denver's Department of Public Works. So I was promoting trash, trash pickup, solid waste management, and recycling, which is where I really started to get into the environmental work, snow removal, learned all about right of way and sidewalks and traffic management and streets and just totally engrossed myself into the infrastructure of cities. Uh, and then um, and then I went to work for the mayor because the mayor's office was understaffed, and the 2008 DNC was coming, and it was going to be in Denver. And they were like, "We need somebody who can write, and so can we borrow Revekka?" And so I went and did speech writing for the mayor of Denver during the 2008 DNC, which was a pretty amazing experience. And then I went to work in human services. So I was the director of communications for the Department of Human Services for 4 years, which was really direct giving back and really directly serving the community. Was also over community relations there, so had all kinds of programs under me while I was at Human Services. The mayor became the governor, and so I rejoined his administration as the director of communications for the lieutenant governor, and was at the Capitol. And because I had all kinds of changes going on in my personal life, decided it was time to come home, and San Diego's home for me. So I went and decided that like I was going to walk away from being in the Capitol and having this amazing like network and career in Colorado, and moved home to San Diego. Stayed in the public sector for a little while longer, and so did 5 years at the Port of San Diego. Did a ton of great work at the port and really loved doing, more infrastructure projects, more environmental projects, tourism projects. But I went to South by Southwest, which is a big, huge conference, and they were really all about like purpose driven at that time and still are. But really was like, I feel like the work that I've been doing in the public sector all of this time is very purpose driven. And I don't think that one, the public sector gets enough credit for that. And two, that it's time for businesses to get on board with that as well, right? That like private sector business really needs to be serving people and community and planet just as much. And I really wanted to help bring that change about. And I was really seeing that happen. And so I developed my brand and like all of like my ideas for my agency, but I didn't take the leap for like years, right? I went to work for another agency first, and then was like, I'm finally ready to do this. Like, so it took me probably, I think I started the agency idea in 2018, and I didn't actually start it until 2022. So it took me like 4 years to actually do it. And so that was a little over 2 years ago now. And I'm just like, it's working.
It is. Oh my good. I love these interviews because I learn so much. There's things Rebecca just shared. I had no idea. I mean, I knew about Disney, but I didn't know you went from Disney to waste management to then like working for the government, or working in government, and then going to the Capitol, and then going back to San Diego. And I love that you shared that you thought about the agency for a while before you took action, because I don't think that that narrative is shared enough.
Mhm,
Because I mean, I've shared with the group, and I think I've even shared on the podcast. I thought about starting a food blog for 2 years before I actually started it, and then once I
mhm,
started it, I realized it actually wasn't what I wanted to do. But can you tell us a little bit about the, because you went to go work for another agency, so you
mhm.
kind of were, and you weren't entry level, right? You're
Yeah.
obviously very experienced. You obviously
Mhm,
know what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about what was stopping you? What was kind of like the back and forth? Like, that dance of like, I want to lean into courage, but then like fear comes in, and it's like you want to take the action and you hold yourself back. Tell us
yeah.
a little bit about that back and forth during the, because you thought about it in 2018 and then you started in 2022. So that was 4 years of you thinking about it and almost creating it in your mind. Tell us about that time.
So part of it was doing things behind the scenes, right? So, I was like, I really need my steady government paycheck, right? Like, and
Oh,
so, and
wow,
or
yeah.
I believed that I did. I really believed that I needed my steady government paycheck.
Mhm.
I have family, right? Like, so I was like, and I'm the breadwinner, right? Like, so I have, I'm divorced, so I was in a relationship for over 20 years, but I've been single for a very long time. I have a now 30-year-old, and 25-year-old, and then I have 2 grandchildren, but they definitely, like, need support from me, and, at the time when my daughter was going through a split, it was like, I can't possibly not have income because what if they need to rely on me? And then I also had so I was doing things behind the scenes while I was still, working full time. And I was like developing out frameworks and processes and working on my brand and getting my logo developed and like doing all of the behind the scenes stuff. I had an EIN for my company for years before I actually started it. I had like registered with the state, like I had done so many things, but I still didn't take the leap, and then I went to work for another agency because it was like, "Look, I can do all the stuff that I wanna do without having to, take like, without with, like it was like training wheels, right? Like, it was like, I don't actually have to worry about the paycheck myself, and the funny thing is, I was doing new business development at that agency, so, like, I was really the one bringing in the dollars, right? Like, I was really, like, helping to develop and, like, scale the agency, grow it, like, I was bringing in the contracts, and I was like, Wait a minute, if I can do this for another agency, I can probably do it for myself too, right? But it was so
Exactly.
much scarier to think of like, I'm going to be responsible for it all, right? Like, and it was like, even with like close to 30 years of experience, it was like, oh, but I can't be the one responsible for how we're going to get paid, right? Like, because that's not what I do. And so it was just like having this idea that I needed training wheels, even though like I'd been riding a bike for years, right? Like it's just like we put these fears on ourself, right? And or that it's just going to be easier if I can do it for somebody else. Like they can take the risk and I can, and it's
Exactly.
just like, but even though she was taking the risk, I was doing the work and I was bringing in the contracts, right? So it was like I don't really need as much support as I thought I did at the time.
Yeah, that makes so much
Yeah.
sense. And it's whenever it falls on you, if you don't make the sales or bring in the business, then you don't get paid. But when you're on somebody else's payroll, they're still going to pay you, right? So
Yep. Hmm.
the risk is very valid, but I also the irony there that you were literally the one bringing in the business, so you were able to see, oh, I can do this because I'm doing it for someone else. So
Hmm.
tell us about the moment that you finally decided to go on your own and take that leap of courage?
So Um, I was going through a tough time at work and at home and in general, right? It's like pandemic period, right? Right, coming out of the pandemic, and everybody is like going through these like crises of conscience about like, oh my gosh, what am I doing right now, right? And I really wanted to. I went back to Southwest by Southwest again when they finally were meeting again in person, and I love that conference because it is so inspiring for me. It has holds a special place because it inspired me to actually just go down this agency road in my head and then finally to make the leap because I attended a couple of workshops and one of them was really about being your authentic self. And I was like, am I being my authentic self right now just because of the environment I'm in, the expectations, the clients that we're serving? There were very specific expectations about how we all would show up, right? And I was like, like I have never felt farther from myself than I do right now in my work. and I'm working from home because we're in a pandemic, right? And so I am basically not being my authentic self, like in my own home. And that's not a good feeling, right? Like I am like, I don't know when this happened or how it happened, but I think I'm done, right? Like I need to be able to be me comfortably, not only in my own home, but everywhere, all of the time. And I was like, and not only that, but I want to build a place where everyone can be their authentic selves all of the time. And so that is like a pillar for my company, for Axiom, is that like we all should feel comfortable like speaking up, showing up as ourselves, like, and we embrace differences. We embrace like I don't want to say conflict, but like everybody should have their own ideas and we welcome those differences in opinion, right? Like that should be a very comfortable process for people to disagree, to have different ideas, to have like if we all had the same ideas, then we wouldn't be a very good creative agency, would we? So, like that creativity comes from the ability for us to all show up as our own authentic selves, and I really like feel strongly about encouraging that on a regular basis. And so it was like that was like the final like aha moment that I can create this space where we can do that.
How beautiful. There's something special about in-person conferences, in-person events. I went to my first in-person Latina event in 2019, and that's when I came up with the idea for Courage Driven Latina because I
Mhm.
realized so many people were just like me. And when you, I love that South by Southwest. Now you're like selling me on it. I'm like, that's the next conference I need to go to.
You
But
need to speak at it. You definitely need to speak at it. Like you need to submit, and you need to speak. Like absolutely, you would give
I
like
know it
the
just
best
passed, so
best
they're
thing.
probably already looking for speakers for next time. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna write a note for myself. So
Yep.
and then we get to meet in person again.
Yes.
So yes, thank you for sharing that. And what I love so much about your story and why I love bringing clients on, especially clients that have lived multiple lives. You've had multiple careers. You've had different trajectories, and sometimes I think people get caught up with the thought of like, oh, I already invested so much time in the film industry or in the movie industry, so I have to stay here or else it was a waste of time. But you are a prime example of how every job you have, every experience that you gain, it's going to just contribute and stack on top of each other to let you get to where you're going now, because I'm sure you're leveraging skills that you learned at every job now that you have your own agency. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And even though I never intended to go into entertainment in the beginning, I am so thankful that that's where I spent the first 10 years of my career. Like, for one thing, I have the best stories in the world. Like, right? I mean, I could like tell you stories like for days about like my day with Ray Liotta, right? Like, I mean, it's just like I have like the best stories. And then on top of that, though, like I always tell people, like the entertainment industry seems fun and glamorous, but like they're making millions of dollars a day. It is a business, right? It is a business,
Totally.
and it is an intense business. And we are working. Like I learned a sense of urgency. I learned how to manage, like, at any given time, I was working on multiple studios with multiple movies on multiple like different opening dates, right? So like I learned how to project manage with the best of them,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna
Like
say that deadline you can't extend. Like once
yeah.
that movie release date is there, you have to meet the deliverables before that day.
Absolutely, and I learned, like, to have good relationships with my client, right? And so now I'm back in the agency world, again, and it's like, oh, like, everything that I learned, like, I grew up in agencies, right?
Yeah,
Like, for me, like, agency life is a way of life, and it's funny, when I was at the Port of San Diego, it's a big organization. We
yeah.
launched a new brand while I was there with multiple sub-brands. We have tons of different departments, and I ran the department like a like an agency. And one of my interns went on to work for an agency, and now she's like running communications programs in like different parts of the world that are all like environmentally oriented. And like she runs like a local like networking event group, and I'll like show up sometimes, and she's like, I just have to say, like, the way that you ran the port's in-house marketing, like, to be like an agency, set me up for success, because now I know how to work in an agency, and I know how to run projects like the way that we did there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're just like making me so happy right now
I
to
got
say that
chills
like
as you
it
were
worked,
saying
right?
that.
Like, yeah. So it's like I still use all of the skills that I learned then, and then just apply them to like a new industry, right? So
Yeah.
it was like a great foundation for my career.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
So the other thing that I want to call out that you mentioned was authenticity, right? You felt like you weren't being your authentic self. Sometimes I think there's this misconception that we need to go find ourselves, and once we find ourselves, we're there. But what I love about your story and everything that you shared is that you are the perfect example of Rebecca's only going to continue to evolve and change, and that understanding of who we are and seeking the authentic self is an ongoing project, right? We are our
Mhm.
most important project. And I'm sure that there was a time in your life when you felt like, okay, this is it, right? When you were in the movie industry or whenever you started working at other agencies, there was probably moments in time when you were like, this is it, or when you were working at the in the port. But for you to get to South by Southwest and say, you know what, I've actually lost what it is that who I am and what it is that I want to create. I think that that's such an important story. Thank you for sharing that, because people sometimes, again, think they just find that authentic self once. But no, we evolve and we change, and our needs change, and our desires change, and we just change as a person. So, tell us a little bit about like this loss of self and how your agency helped you find your authentic self again, or this creation
Oh,
of the agency.
so I'm gonna start with like the epiphany moment where I I was like texting my best friend, whose name is Erica with a K. So one of my best friends in Denver, and I literally was like walking through the streets of downtown Austin in between workshops at South by Southwest, sobbing, crying. And I was like, I figured out why I hate working from home. And everybody was like, we get to work from home, the pandemic, like I love it. Like, and I'm like, I hate working from home. And I don't know why I hate working from home, but I absolutely hate it. And part of it's I'm an extrovert, right? But I'm like, it's because I'm not myself in my own home where I should be the most comfortable. I don't feel like I'm myself right now. And I like that feeling of like I'm in like, and I had this like great like setup where I had a giant master bedroom. So I had set up half of it to be my office. And I'm like, I'm in the room that should be my sanctuary, right?
Right.
All day long. And I'm working so many hours, and I don't even feel like I can be my authentic self in my own room, in my own sanctuary. And I'm just like sobbing. And she's like, can you? And so she's like trying to call me, right? And I'm like, no, I can't even get on the phone. Like, I can't
Bless
even
your
talk.
heart.
Like, and she's like, she's like, answer me. I was like, hold on, I just need a minute, right? Like, and, it was like that was like the like, okay, I need to do something different. I need to recognize that I'm not myself, right? I'd gotten quiet. I'm not quiet. I'd gotten quiet at work. I wasn't feeling good about like speaking up. I was just in this place where I was like, I don't fit. I'm not, this is not the right spot for me, right? And it was clear that I was just like in a spot where it was not the right spot for me. It was not the right dynamics. It had been for a time, perhaps, right? Like, but I had gotten to a place where it wasn't working. And so, um, I was like, I have this agency, right? Like, I don't want to go work somewhere else. I love the work that I do, right? And I want to continue doing it. I want to do some work for the public sector, but I also
Mhm.
really feel strongly about getting into more private sector work and nonprofit work, right? Where anything that is purpose driven can be a part of the work that we do rather than limiting to public sector, which is where I was before. And I was like, I can do all of that, right? And I can create a space where everybody can be their authentic selves. I have the whole brand set up. I already had a website. I already had an EIN. Like it was all there. I
Right.
just had to step into it. And I was like, I have to do this. Like it's the time has come. Like I have put it off and put it off long enough in my head and the time has come. Like all of the signs were there that the time has come for me to do this. And so I just was like, I guess I'm gonna do this. Like I mean I gave my notice within weeks. Like it was probably it might have been days. It
Yeah.
might have been days. Yeah.
Do you feel stuck in your life or in your business and you're not sure what's next? Maybe you're like, I don't know what the vibe is, but this ain't the vibe. So maybe you're ready for something different, even if you don't know what different means, even if you don't know what that transition is just yet. Well, if so, I hear you. And the best way to make a pivot in your life or in your business is to work on a courage project, which is what we do inside of Courage Driven Latina. Courage Driven Latina is a 12-month group coaching program that is designed to help you pivot and take action and completely transform who you are in just 90 days. We do this through working on a courage project. Inside of the program, we help you identify what your courage project is, not just your first courage project. We help you create a plan for the entire year that you're in the program. But you are going to see a difference in just 30 days, and you will be unrecognizable in just 90 days. Whether you're in the middle of a life transition, struggling with self doubt, maybe you're tired of starting and stopping a project, or if you're feeling lonely in your goals and in your dreams, maybe you are the only entrepreneur in your friend group, then this program is for you. A courage project can be starting a business, writing poetry, launching a podcast, starting your healing journey, or building the confidence to date after a divorce. No matter the project, my courage framework will help you overcome the obstacles and make your dreams a reality. Inside of Courage Driven Latina, you're going to build confidence, you're going to build courage, and you are going to do it with a supportive community of badass women who are cheering you on every step of the way. Be sure to join the waitlist by going to couragedrivenlatina.com. We also have the link down below in the show notes because the doors are opening soon. The doors open on July 29th, and we will have a special 48-hour bonus that I do not want you to miss. So mark your calendar, talk to your partner, mentally prepare because I don't want you to miss this bonus. There is no better time to join this program than now. We have a completely revamped curriculum. The community is incredible. I mean, we have people of all walks of life in this program. And if you've been eyeing it, do not wait. Now is the best time to join. Again, the doors are opening on July 29th. So be sure to join the wait list. And I can't wait to work with you. That's beautiful. I feel like there's a moment in the little dance of if you want to do something or not that you almost get over yourself and then it
Hmm.
becomes everything even though it was always there it suddenly becomes crystal clear and it feels like
Yeah.
that was that experience for you. Interestingly enough, different locations carry different energies as well. So Austin must just be a good place for you to be for
Yes.
creative work and like I don't know, maybe even considering an annual trip to Austin. I mean, for the conference, right? But like maybe even you can go a different time and spend a little
Hmm.
bit of time there. I don't know. I feel the same way about Austin. Every time I'm there, I'm very creative.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm just gonna manifest that we're gonna end up there sometime this year, next year
Okay.
together. So tell us, Rebecca, what who do you work with now, and what services do you provide? Because a lot of amazing people listen to this podcast who may be in some type of organization that may want to leverage your agency,
Hmm.
and also some people may not fully understand what a marketing agency is. So if you can tell us who it is that you work with and an example of a service that you would provide.
Absolutely. So we are a full service marketing agency. Great example of a of a project that we've done is, for example, we're working with a combination of the state of Colorado and a nonprofit in Colorado to do a social norming campaign around building social connections for parents. So we are building connections for parents because we know that the more isolated parents are, the more stressed out they are, and the worse the outcomes are for children and for parents and families. However, when parents have strong social connections, when they've got a village of support, then they, report that they, are happier, they're less stressed out. We've got,
Mhm.
lower incidence of abuse and neglect. And so we've got prevention dollars that we can use for really norming the idea that we are getting rid of this old mentality that there are that it's so easy and look how perfect and wonderful my children are and look what a wonderful parent I am, and instead we're saying like no, this is hard. So the campaign is called Send Back Up and Got Your Back, and we are doing an entire advertising campaign around it. We're doing like local mom influencers as part of it. We've built a website with an online toolkit where you can download like memes and things to send to your friends to tell them how you're feeling or to send them messages of support if they're parents. We have, videos that are a part of it. So we, worked with a partner to produce videos to do an entire photo shoot. So everything from this for this campaign from beginning to end we are responsible for, and it's going to be a 5-year effort. We're in about year 3 of this 5-year effort at this point. So it's a comprehensive outreach campaign. We do think we're working right now on a Stop the Hate campaign in Southern California. So that's super exciting. We're just getting started on that.
Amazing.
And we have like some like water conservation campaigns. We have emergency preparedness campaigns. So these types of campaigns where we're putting together the materials, taking complex information usually, distilling it into things that the public can understand easily, helping write the messaging, put together all the creative materials, and get it out and distribute it into the world to make connections with people. Mm,
I love that so much. You
mm,
must feel just so fulfilled. I mean, just hearing these different projects without your agency, I mean, these organizations like the government would just have the idea, but like you really make it reality. You help execute it, right? You really like you're doing the meetups with like the mom influencers or even the memes or even just the creation of the website because I mean, my brother works for the government, and what I know is that everything works, moves so slow. So,
mhm.
hiring somebody like your agency, you bring the vision to reality and execute it so much faster than if they try to do it in house.
Absolutely. And I think that just the fact that I spent 13 years in the public sector, I know
Yeah.
exactly what the limitations are. I know exactly how to work around all of the different, bureaucracies. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, when I was in the public sector, this is how I managed to get through this kind of a challenge. And then my clients are like, oh my gosh, like I love that you've spent time on this side and can help walk me through those things. But also, then we have the flexibility to do things that they don't have the flexibility to do in house, right? Like we can get the site up quickly. We can
Mhm.
use the kind of platform and technology that they don't have the capacity to use in house because there are limitations about what you're allowed to use
Right.
based on like the requirements. Whereas, it's like, don't worry, we can put it up, we can host it, we can
Yeah.
get it all done, and we can get it out into the world. So, yeah, it's a great partnership there. And then, doing that, we've even got a tech company that we're going to be doing a whole purpose driven campaign, or it's a purpose driven tech company that we will be launching in July. So that's super exciting. So it's like it doesn't just have to be public sector.
Right.
There
Mhm.
are opportunities for any kind of purpose driven work, which is nice for our team because like we get to flex our creative muscles in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How fun. Just like I really feel like you've cracked the code because every project is different. So it's allowing you to think on your feet, to think creatively, but because it's also purpose driven, it's always going to be fulfilling because you get to decide which jobs you take and which ones you don't. So I'm a huge, huge fan. And now I have a question for you because as we're speaking about this agency, everything sounds amazing. So,
Mhm.
what drew you to Courage Driven Latina? Because you already had a business, it was already profitable. You didn't need help with what to do, right? You already knew that. So,
Mhm.
whenever you found me, because I think you found me sometime earlier this year, right, or late last year,
Late
late
last year,
last,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So, tell us about that. What drew you to Courage Driven Latina?
So, the way that I describe it is that I felt like I was pulling my punches. I felt like I wasn't as bold as I usually am. I wasn't, as front and center as I usually am. I didn't feel like I was all in. Um, my motivation level was I was just struggling with my motivation level, and, um, I knew that something was missing, and I felt like my confidence had taken a hit. I thought that when I left my previous position, that I would just go right back to being myself again, and instead I didn't. I I wasn't there. I wasn't quite back to feeling myself immediately. It was a journey, and I didn't expect to have to go on that journey. And the longer that that took, the more I was frustrated and upset with myself and the situation. And I saw some of your materials and just the idea of being both purpose driven and courage driven spoke to me, right? And I was like, I feel like I used to be bold and I don't know where it went, but maybe if you can help me get it back, that would be awesome. And so that was why I joined because I felt like I just needed to find my courage and my confidence a little bit more. And it wasn't like I wasn't like, like suddenly timid, but there was a hesitation that I could feel, that was, 1, a little unlike me, but 2, I knew was impacting my ability to fully realize the potential of my agency.
Yeah. So if you're okay with me just reading off a couple of things from when you filled out your entry survey when you joined the program, because it's spot on. So this was back in November of
Okay.
2023. And you said, I used to feel like courage defined me. And lately, I feel like I've lost my way. I'm hoping to find my way back to courage. I've been feeling unproductive and unmotivated and healing from a previous toxic boss. I want to feel like myself again, productive, confident, driven, and motivated.
Yeah.
How does that
And
feel to, like, hear it back?
I mean, wow. And it's funny because, like, I feel like I have, like, just I can't even believe that how different I am now from November, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's like a whole new me, like, I, like, joke with people like, "I'm back. I'm me. I'm good."
And I wanna get into your courage project, what it was, but before, just let's see, uh, just a week ago,
Mhm.
yes, just a week ago, we asked for Courage Project features for you all to submit this form. And so here's what your transformation was, just as of last week. You said, when I began, I was really struggling with motivation, confidence, and creativity. I felt lost and did not feel like myself. By focusing on my project, I was able to find motivation, regain my confidence, and feel like I've been completely transformed. I'm amazed at the difference I've seen in myself in such a short time.
Mhm. It's so true. I mean, and I think what is so funny to me is that I never would have imagined this was gonna be my way back.
This is exactly why I wanted to bring you on the podcast because I'm noticing a trend here. Because I didn't know the South by Southwest thing, but I'm noticing a trend for you, Rebecca, which is super helpful for me, especially because now we're working together in the mastermind.
Mhm.
But you actually don't need any strategy help. You know exactly what you're doing because in the South
It's
by
helpful
South
though.
it is helpful, but in South by Southwest, the workshop that brought you to kicking off the agency and going all in on yourself was the authentic self workshop. It
Mhm.
wasn't how to grow an agency. It was about
Mhm.
finding yourself, right?
Mhm.
And whenever you joined Courage Driven Latina, you already had a very profitable business, but you were playing small. Not that you didn't have a
Yeah.
successful business, but you knew you were
Mhm.
holding yourself back.
Yep.
And whenever we talked about what your courage project could be, I gave you a very different courage project than what you thought. Would
Yep.
you like to share like what you thought you needed to do and then what you
Mhm.
ended up doing?
Yep. So, part of like the process is to brainstorm some possible courage projects, right? And so I did. I was like, I know that I need to focus on my business and growing my business because this is like what I'm feeling unmotivated to like really, and what I really want to like be more confident in promoting, right? And so I had that first, right? But then I was like, ah, and then I have these other ideas because, like the program is a year long. I joined the year long version of the program. And so I was like, maybe I could also work on these other things eventually, right? And so I was like, so like first and foremost, my business, right? Here's like what I want to focus on. And you were like, well, what have you done? And I was like, this, and this. And you were like, yeah, kind of sounds like you know what you're doing. Like, and you were like, what are your other ideas? Right. And then I was like, well, like I've written poetry for, years, and I've, kind of toyed with the idea of like actually publishing a manuscript or writing some more or figuring something out with my poetry. And you were like, let's talk a little bit more about that. And I was like, okay. And so and I, mentioned that I was like on this healing journey that I was trying to figure out how to heal, right? Like I knew I needed to, but I didn't know how. And
You also
so
described, sorry to interrupt you, but you also
mhm,
described feeling kind of stuck. You
mhm,
felt so you thought maybe more work was going to get you unstuck, but you were already taking action in your business. It's not like you
yeah,
weren't taking action. So you described
mhm,
feeling stuck, a
yeah,
desire to heal, and that you had written poetry. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes. And so you were like, "So, how about we focus here? Like, like I think this is a great courage project." And I was kind of like, "My poetry? Like, really? Like," and then, you were like, "I mean, if you really are like focused on healing," and so, like, through this process, we like came up with this courage project to write poetry focused on healing 3 times a week for a 12-week period, right? And so I was like, I feel like I'm taking it out. And I was like, I feel like and I was kind of like, well, I'm not, I mean, like I said, I was struggling with motivation, and I was like, I'll take the out, right? So like I'll postpone focusing on like growing my business for 12 weeks so that I can do poetry instead. And so I did. I started writing poetry, and I hadn't written very much in a while, in probably close to a year. I mean, I'd written a bit in the beginning of the year, but I wasn't really focused on writing my poetry. And I go through kind of years where I'm writing and years where I'm not. And I started writing and writing and writing. And I was like, I started to lose weight. I started to like just have more energy than I'd had in like years. I was walking all over the place and out in the sun and traveling and hanging out with friends, and couldn't stop talking about like my healing project and my right to heal project, and I was posting about it, and I was like really delving into some stuff. I started to see a therapist. I was like, I've always like kind of felt like I should, but I never like follow through. I'm always too busy. I saw a therapist for 6 months straight. I just I felt like I stopped procrastinating on everything. And then And then suddenly, like, I was it was not even 2 months in. So, I started my Courage project in December, and went out for a birthday dinner in January. So, like, less than 2 months. Um, I had an espresso martini, which, like, gave me way too much caffeine, and I went home and was like, I don't feel like sleeping. What do I feel like doing? I think I'll start the blog that I've been meaning to write for my business for the past 2 years that never did, and I just, like, started writing it, and I kept writing for, like, the next couple of months on that, still writing my poetry, but I, like, pre-wrote blogs for, like, 8 months worth of content in advance. I came up with an entirely new marketing plan for year 3. So April was my anniversary of the agency, and I came up with um a whole new marketing plan for the year, and, like, we're implementing it. It's, like, going terrific. We redid the website, like, I wrote all new content for the website and worked with my designer, and we relaunched the website for the, 2nd anniversary of the agency. I mean, I've been, like, just on fire with motivation, like, just on fire with motivation. I'm like, my problem now is that I have to remind myself to sleep.
And for context, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm just ecstatic for you. But the irony in all of this is after we chose your courage project, I didn't hear anything from you and you didn't ask for coaching. So I had no idea. I was like, she hates the program. I had all the human thoughts. And then whenever we reconnected about the mastermind, you're like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting to tell you. Everything is
I've just been
great.
so busy getting all kinds of stuff done.
Exactly. And I just for the people listening, because I know this can feel very, it sounds like we're contradicting ourselves, but let me explain why this works so well. Because Rebecca was struggling with motivation and procrastination. And as you know from the procrastination to purpose workshop that I did when you joined the program, procrastination is nothing more than avoiding a negative emotion. Usually we procrastinate because something feels boring, intimidating, uncomfortable. So the fact that you gave yourself the time to express the discomfort within your poetry and allowed yourself to be creative, it's like you unblocked the blocks, which
Mhm,
creativity leads to more creativity and action leads to more action. So you were almost stuck in inaction, but through the poetry, we got you expressing yourself. And when you were able to express yourself creatively and s- through the healing perspective that you were desiring, it allowed you to show up in so many other areas. And it really, your poetry is healing for you, and not just for
mhm,
you. Whenever you choose to share it with others, it will be healing for others as well. And that's why it unblocked your creativity so that you can show up elsewhere. The procrastination was no longer there because you were dealing with the negative emotions. And I think
mhm.
that's where people sometimes they think they need to work their just action their way out of things, but sometimes the being, and you allowed yourself to be and then write the poetry, and now we are where we are.
Yeah. It's been I was like, "Man, she nailed it. She just nailed
Oh, I was like, I messed up because I didn't hear anything from Rebecca. But I'm so glad. I'm so, so glad. So at this
it."
point, you've been in Courage Driven Latina for let's see, you joined in
About
November,
6
right?
months?
Yeah. So oh my goodness. So look at
Almost
you.
6 months, yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Obviously, we're working together now in Magnetic Mastermind because you
Mhm.
are running a business. But
Mhm.
what is your next Courage project inside of Courage Driven Latina?
Oh, goodness, I've been thinking about that quite a bit because I just continued with my
Yeah.
Courage project. I didn't stop after
And
12
you could
weeks. I
just
was
keep
like, "Yeah,
extending
yeah."
it,
I'm
right?
just
Like,
like, I'm keep going. Like, this is terrific. I'm gonna keep going. Um, so, uh, I've been thinking a lot about that and what I wanna do next. I do feel like I have to do some self-care work. Like, I need to, like I'm so motivated that I have to, like, remind myself that, like, sleep is good, Rebecca, sleep is good. And I've always been an insomniac, and like, so, but it's like, no, I do better when I sleep. I do better when I have creative time, and I do better when I'm like walking and hiking regularly. So it's like really being able to focus on making sure that I keep that balance and don't go back to like the old workaholic Rebecca is a big focus for me. And I know that I am better for myself, for my work, and for my team when I do all of those things. So I'm really thinking about like making that my next courage project, particularly now because right now when like we are seeing such success and we're scaling and we're growing and we've got all of these like great projects coming on board, it's like s- rather than just powering through and doing it all, it's like, no, like now is the time that self-care is even more important.
Yes.
And like I think that my first courage project taught me that like don't underestimate the value of taking that time for yourself, right? Like I would not be where I am right now had I not taken that healing time, and it's like I just don't want to lose that ever again.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you're familiar with, we have a module about this and we also have a podcast episode, but the 4 M's that I have, which is movement, mindset, mindfulness, and masturbation, was like a complete self-care, right? Which is literally what you're doing with you're moving your body by your walks, you're working on your mindset by being inside of Courage Driven Latina. And then there's mindfulness, right? That like I really feel like poetry is part of that, but I've been
Mhm.
wanting to add a fifth M to it, which would be make something. And that's what you're doing with
Ah,
your poetry as well. You're allowing yourself to be creative. And for some people, that's making banana bread, but there's something about making something that unlocks creativity. And even creativity requires a lot of courage. And I feel like that almost unblocks courage as well. So I love what you said about just as you begin to grow even more, the self-care and the time for yourself is even more vital, right? Because now you're running an agency at a much higher level with, you're going to need to bring on more people, take on more business, negotiate higher, maybe raise your rates, and all of this requires you to take care of yourself first.
yep.
um so, if you don't mind me asking, what happened to your business after implementing your Courage project? And you don't, I mean, feel free to share anything you feel like sharing, like a
No.
percentage of growth or like anything that you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, so I would say we've seen about a 20% increase in gross revenue. Um,
Mm,
And I think that's particularly important because last year, I think I brought on one new project the entire year. And I mean, luckily I had like big clients and I was okay, right? Like I didn't
mhm,
need to bring on new stuff, but I was like, oh, but like eventually those projects will be done, right?
right.
And I need a pipeline, right?
Mhm,
And I was like, I can't have just one new project, and it was a very small project, and I was like, "Okay, so, like, as far as new business goes, last year, not a good year. This year, already commitments for 3 new contracts," right? So those represent, at least 20% of last year's revenue, and then the 3rd contract, we actually don't have an amount on, so 2 of those contracts represent 20% of gross revenue. And then yeah, and so, like, the 3rd one, I mean, as we're negotiating right now, could really take that to the next level, and, I mean, we're just in, like, the first 5 months of the year, so that's in the first half of the year. So I feel like we're like, not only do I feel like I'm back, the business is thriving. It's exactly where I want it to be. Um, like I have a vision board. I have 2 vision boards. I have one for me and one for my business.
love it.
And yeah, and like the stuff on the vision board is all happening. Like everything there. I'm like, we're doing this and we are doing this and we are doing this. All of these things are happening. So it's just really awesome to see that like by setting the intention, it's actually happening. And so yeah, I just feel like when I made the decision to join Magnetic Mastermind, I was like, if I saw this much transformation with Courage Driven Latina, I just absolutely can't wait to take it to the next level with Magnetic Mastermind. So super excited for our
I
work
am
together there.
so excited. Yes. So, okay,
Mm-hmm.
just to clarify, 20% increase in gross revenue in the first 5 months of the year compared to the first 5 months of last year or compared to last year total?
To last year's total. Yeah. Mm,
You've already made 20% more than last year and we're only 5 months in and you're still negotiating one contract. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. You are going to be a multi seven figure agency in no time.
Yeah, so it's good
Wow.
stuff. Like I'm super like, yeah, I just feel like yeah, we're on fire right now. And one of the things that I wanted to do was like convert people to like from contractor status to
Yeah.
employee status and from part-time to full-time, and that's already happening, right? Like all of those things are happening, and it's just like so exciting to be like, said this is what we wanted and this is what's happened and we've been able to convert, and like we've got 401ks and we've got insurance and we've got like it's just like super super cool to be like just past the year 2 mark and
Yeah.
see this success. And so and I think what's the most exciting to me is that like the premise for my business is that you can be purpose driven and be successful, that you don't have to pick like profit over purpose or purpose over profit, right? Like you need to shed that like focus on profit mentality, focus on purpose, and the profit will come. And it's happening. So like I love that, like it's like we are our own case study.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, my heart is so full from just your that obviously revenue is great because we need the money to survive and now you're able to convert people from part-time to full-time. All of that's important. But I think just overall the fulfillment that I see in you and the
Mhm.
glow. I mean, we obviously met over the weekend for the Courage Driven Latina event and whenever we had the kickoff for the mastermind. So just you were just like radiating. And it's just been such an honor to watch you go from almost hiding and like even
Mhm.
encourage driven Latina, you were hiding. You
Yeah.
weren't asking for coaching, you were just staying back. And now I feel like you are always front and center and you're always willing to take up space, not in a place, not from this perspective of let me take other people's space, but taking up space to help other people also take up space. And that's just been so beautiful to witness.
I agree. I feel like I said, I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm on fire right now. I feel like my agency's on fire. And I just feel like now is the time. And I also just feel like, I mean, there was a time where like somebody said to me, "You're always trying to one up people." And I was like, "No, that's not what I'm trying to do at all." And it made me feel like hesitant to shine, right? And it's like I don't ever want to feel that way
Yeah.
again, right? And I recognize now that like there was a lot of layers to that, right? And it's like it's not about me, right? Like I don't need to worry about what I'm doing and not doing. Like I can just be myself, and if people feel like I shine, then great, right? Like and I don't need to feel like I need to worry about how others are perceiving. I can just be myself and feel good about that. And um the people who that resonates with are the right people to have around me,
Exactly.
right? Like and I feel like really good about the fact that it's like I can just be me and know that the people who think that that's awesome are the right people, right? Like
Exactly, exactly. Oh man, I love that. And I'm sorry you had that experience where oh you're trying to outshine people. I feel like it's very it echoes kind of culturally what we've been told of like don't take up too much space or cagadita te ves más bonita, all of these different messages that we maybe received as children. So I'm sorry that that happened and I'm just so grateful to have you in these spaces where like we just can't wait to celebrate your wins for you. I know we're running towards the end of the time that we have scheduled for this. So I just have a few quick questions
Okay.
about from your perspective about Courage Driven Latina. So, who
Mhm.
do you think should join Courage Driven Latina? Who do you think the program is for?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I would say, I mean, anybody who feels like they want to take themselves to the next level, right? Like I have never felt like I was somebody who was timid or anxious in any way, but I just felt like I had lost my courage, and I got so much more out of it than finding my courage back, right? I just was like I didn't even realize that I was really dealing with some anxiety. And now, like, the self coaching model has really helped me to figure out, like, oh, like, whenever I start to feel nervous about something, I can like reframe it using
Yeah,
this model and get into a different mindset really
love
quickly.
it.
Like, it's just like the self awareness that comes with it is terrific. So, anybody who's just looking to like take themselves to the next level, I think it's perfect for. Um, I think any Latina who feels like the majority is first gen Latinas. I'm not actually first gen. My mom's first gen. But it's all of the stuff still resonates, right? So
Absolutely.
I still feel all of the same like cultural expectations and sometimes not, right? Sometimes I'm like, "Hey, mom, thanks for not being sexist."
Right.
I'm just like, "Man, you were really good at not putting that on me." And like and it makes me really appreciate my mom in a lot of ways, right? Like
Exactly.
so I think that like there are times where it's like I want to like, recognize some things in our culture, but then also appreciate what's
Right.
different about my own family and some of the things that my mom did differently. And so I think that like anytime you feel like, oh, well, I don't match the ideal or match the typical experience, it's okay because it's like there will be so much that does resonate with you and you'll appreciate the differences at the same time. So I would say those are two things that for me were like it's so awesome to have people who really recognize those cultural ties and differences and for anybody who's like ready to like take themselves to the next level.
I love it. I don't even know if I have any more questions anymore. I think that was such a comprehensive answer that I don't even know what else I was going to ask. So, Rebecca, I am just so excited to continue to support you, not only in Courage Driven Latina, but now in the mastermind as well. I'm so excited to see your agency blossom and bloom and just prove to us that you can be purpose driven and successful at the same time, right? You don't have to pick
Agreed.
profit or purpose, like you said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you please tell us where people can find you?
Yes, absolutely. So the agency's website is axiomofpurpose.com, AXIOM of purpose.com. And on there is all kinds of forms, links to our LinkedIn, our Facebook, our Instagram, and so I have direct access to all of those things. You can send us a message directly in a form on the site. So that's the best way to get to us, and we'd love to hear from any of you. Mhm.
Love it. Amazing. I will see you on our next call. Thank you,
Sounds
Rebecca.
good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.